Before we go any further, if you care about serious, source-driven history and practical survival knowledge that still holds up under scrutiny, subscribe to History Monuments now. What follows is not fantasy survivalism or modern prepper mythology. It is a Cold War-era strategy developed by governments, engineers, and civil defense scientists who had access to real data, full-scale tests, and hard lessons. They learned quickly that bunkers were not the winning move most people think they were. During the early Cold War, public imagination fixated on bunkers. Thick concrete, steel doors, and underground chambers felt reassuring. Governments initially followed that instinct. But as nuclear testing data accumulated in the 1950s and 1960s, planners realized a harsh truth. Most people would never reach a bunker in time, and even well-built bunkers failed if poorly supplied, poorly ventilated, or located incorrectly. You see, the real killer in most nuclear scenarios wasn't the blast or fire. It was fallout. And, interestingly enough, surviving fallout didn't require deep bunkers. Fallout, well, it consists of radioactive particles that settle after an explosion. These particles, they emit radiation that is strongest in the first hours and days, but then they decay rather rapidly. Civil defense scientists, they discovered something quite remarkable. Survival depended less on how deep underground you were and more on shielding, distance, and time. This insight, it changed everything. Instead of telling people to dig deeper, planners focused on how to stay inside, shielded and alive until those radiation levels dropped. The most effective Cold War survival method was not bunker construction. Actually, it was rapid sheltering inside existing buildings using mass and distance. Basements, interior rooms, stairwells, and earth-backed walls provided enormous protection when used correctly. Tests showed that a person in a well-chosen basement could receive hundreds of times less radiation than someone outdoors. Even upper-floor interior rooms, surrounded by books, furniture and walls, performed far better than shallow backyard bunkers with thin roofs. Radiation is blocked by dense material. Earth, concrete, brick, water, books, and even packed soil absorb radiation effectively. During the Cold War, the guidance really emphasized adding mass between people and fallout, rather than just going deeper underground. This led to practical advice that, honestly, still holds up under scrutiny today. Folks were told to stay in the center of a building, put as many walls as possible between themselves and the outside, and, if available, use basements. They were also advised to stack heavy objects around shelter areas. And, the time spent sheltered mattered just as much as the location itself. Schools, government offices, and apartment buildings were all surveyed for what were called fallout protection factors. Signs were put up to mark areas with the highest shielding. Interestingly, these spots were often storage rooms, boiler rooms, or stairwells. Definitely not those dramatic underground bunkers you might imagine. Civil defense manuals actually taught people how to convert ordinary rooms into high-protection shelters using things like furniture doors and packed materials. This approach really scaled well. Entire cities, in theory, could shelter millions without the need to build a single bunker. The core principles remain unchanged. It's important to identify the most shielded part of your home. Basements with earth on all sides remain ideal, you know. If no basement exists, interior rooms away from windows work well. Reducing exposure time is critical. Staying sheltered for the first 48 hours dramatically reduces radiation dose. This is physics, not opinion. Food, water, and sanitation planning mattered far more than reinforced doors, honestly. Many private bunkers suffered from poor ventilation, moisture, structural weakness, or isolation. People trapped themselves without sufficient supplies or escape routes, which is, well, a sobering lesson. In contrast, sheltering in existing buildings allowed, flexibility, communication, and shared resources. Cold War planners understood that survival was really a systems problem, not just some engineering fantasy. Mobility, information, and patience, well, those saved more lives than concrete ever did. As nuclear anxiety faded, civil defense education disappeared. Bunkers became symbols rather than strategies. Media, well, it simplified survival into extremes, ignoring the nuanced science that once guided policy. Yet the data never changed. The physics never changed. The survival curves remain the same. Because it is realistic, scalable, and grounded in tested science. It works for apartments, homes, schools, and cities. It requires understanding, not excavation. It respects time as the greatest ally. History shows us that survival is not about hiding deeper. It is about knowing where to be, when to stay, and how to let danger pass. If this kind of clear-eyed historical truth matters to you, subscribe to History Monuments and share this guide. These lessons were written for a world under existential threat, and they remain some of the most practical survival knowledge ever produced.